So backlinking can play a very important role, but the reality is your links are your reputational relevance that you have to make sure you're keeping in mind.
So for those that are just freely selling things, you got to wonder about the legitimacy of those links long term and how that might benefit that business, if at all.
That's right. Happy November, everybody. Hopefully your tooth hasn't rotted out of your face with the amount of candy you just consumed during Halloween. I'm Chris Lawson, your co-host. I'm so frustrated, and I think every single one of you are as well. We're going to take a look today at a topic that impacts every single one of us who has an email account. But before I do, I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, as usual, Jordan Woolf, who at one point had an unsolved mystery that eventually became solved. His outside garbage can mysteriously vanished, and we had no idea why.
Yep. And spoiler alert, it wasn't aliens.
No. No. It wasn't aliens.
Yeah, definitely was a weird time coming home. You know, you put the garbage out in the morning and then you come back and it's not there anymore. And you go like, who would want my garbage? Turns out the answer to that is pretty clear when you think about it for 2 seconds. It's bears. Bears want my garbage. Yeah, they stole my garbage can and took it away for the day. But
well, and then it made its way back. So apparently they're friendly bears. They destroyed your garbage can and then brought it back. So
placed it right back where they took it from. Yeah, it's very peculiar. But
thank you, Yogi.
How it happened. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned that I'm frustrated. And the reason I'm frustrated is because every single day I have to check 8,000 emails that are all, I don't know, individuals who think that by emailing me a billion times about getting backlinks is going to work. I don't know. Stop emailing me, people. If you're listening to this, stop emailing me about your backlinking services. That's not how SEO works. That's not the end all be all.
I don't think we're going to reach them all this way. I don't think that's an effective way to make it stop. It's probably better to put it in spam filters. But yeah, I mean, we are coming in a little bit hot into this one. We were discussing different topics to work on for today's episode, and just prior to that, we're talking about the frustrations of the many emails that hopefully some of you can relate to of backlinking services or individuals trying to sell backlinks to your website to improve, air quotes, your website's SEO. And, they'll talk about domain authority and all these types of things. And certainly backlinks are part of the Google algorithm, but it's not the whole story. So we figured maybe this was a time to kind of talk about why those emails, while they may be offering a real legit service, are not maybe your best use of your time or energy, and how that relates to SEO and some of the strategies that you should be maybe considering instead.
Well, I think it's first important to say that this is not going to be an episode talking about SEO. Search engine optimization is a huge topic. We could do a series on this. We just want to talk about the topic of backlinks specifically. And I think to do so, we have to kind of first talk about like what is a backlink and what is its role in the topic of search marketing or SEO. So why don't we jump right into that, and I'll take the first crack at it. And let's be very clear, of the two of us, Jordan, you are the guy who's more the expert on this as the strategy director at our agency that handles those types of things. But regardless, so backlinking is very simple. You have a website that has whatever on it. You could be a business, you could be, I don't know, a product, you could be an individual that just blogs and talks about things in your life. You have a certain authority with Google that can be impacted in a variety of ways. One of those ways is for other websites to essentially link to your website. The hope there, in some cases, is to drive traffic through to your site. But in a lot of cases, much like the companies claiming to get you backlinks, all they're doing is they're linking to you because they're trying to trick Google or any search engine into believing that you are the authority or you are the one that should be ranking for all the things associated. The reality, though, is that every website on the internet has a different domain authority, i.e., I don't know, the New York Times will have a much higher domain authority than your little hodunk, news business that just started out and Google doesn't know a clue about who you are. Or maybe you're an international, renowned product of some sort. You're going to have a much higher domain authority than, say, a smaller player that hasn't been as established, so on and so forth. So backlinking can play a very important role, but the reality is your links are your reputation. Basically, you have a reputational relevance that you have to make sure you're keeping in mind.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of think about why, even this is part of it. It makes logical sense why Google would care about links going to your website. It does give them additional information. If your website was just on its own in a vacuum, then all it would have to understand where to put you in the rankings for searches would be the content you provide to it and the experience people have on your website. So that data is useful, and that's definitely a big part of the algorithm. In fact, content-driven search marketing strategies tend to have some good legs to them, ensuring that your website has the right content so that Google can understand what it is you do by literally writing about it and describing it. The links, though, to your website do tell it a couple other things. It tells the audience that may be interested in your website, because Google can follow the links from where it came to your website. They'll understand the audience from that site and compare the two. They'll also be able to tell what people did when they went through that link. Did they enjoy the site? Did they bounce away from the site after they went through that link? There's a bunch of different pieces of information, and these puzzle pieces are kind of what make the difference between somebody who's ranked number 1 on Google and number 50 on Google. All these subtle these pieces add up to a story that Google can then understand the association, and that relevancy and reputation builds over time. The problem is with backlinks in particular is Google's in a bit of a war where they want that information that is legitimate, genuinely beneficial information. And so they begin to give websites that have links from websites more authority than those that don't in general. But they are also paying attention to the quality of those leads and the quality of the experience that people have when going through those links, sorry. The main question then is, when you're looking at these emails that we were just complaining about coming in daily where people are selling links, are those links actually doing that for you? Are they demonstrating to Google that you've built a positive reputation with this other website, that this other website's audience is relevant for you, and that even if they do follow that link, that they're going to have a positive experience on your website as a result? Those types of things can actually have a negative impact on your website if they're not thought out correctly, if they're not in a good balance. So it's definitely something that is frustrating. And I know that it's something also that I think, it wouldn't be in your inbox to such degree if it wasn't working to some degree. There's lots of businesses out there that they're paying these individuals and small companies to do and purchase backlinks for them without understanding the context that we just described.
I think it is extremely technical, if we're being very honest, but it really is not when you really think about it. If you were to think of anybody in your personal life that you trust as a thought leader on a certain topic, maybe you're the world-renowned expert on weightlifting, okay? When that person tells you something or states something or endorses something, you're going to listen to it a little bit more than, say, the guy who's the know-it-all that just started lifting for the first time in his life, right? So the weightlifter, the first individual, is going to have more authority over the individual who just started. Google looks at it the same way. If there is a website that's out there, maybe it's a chamber of commerce. Maybe it is a very highly renowned industry-specific forum or some kind of website where all of the industry kind of circles around it. Those websites are going to have way more authority because they have established that over time versus brand new sites that maybe are irrelevant to you, other websites that, maybe just, for a lack of better words, maybe they've been blacklisted or Google looks at them negatively. those backlinks to your site, for example, or how Google views them as whether they're trustworthy or not, is going to have way less impact than those websites that are endorsing you, or websites that have a lot more authority in Google's eyes.
Yeah. And I think that it's really important to start thinking about these things pretty critically. There are really, really good ways to use backlinks. So I don't want this to come across like backlinks aren't something you should be pursuing. Yep. It's just a matter of how you go about it and the perspective that you take on it. One of the ways you can also build links to your website is, instead of requesting or buying them from other sites and just getting a link injected somewhere in their site, is to actually give them content to then put on their site that has links in it that would lead them back. And this fits in much more closely to more traditional PR strategies. So if you have a new thought leadership idea, you've got a big announcement, you've got a new product you've launched, or maybe you've solved some difficult problem in the industry and you wrote a white paper on it, often you'll publish those on your own website. But in the PR mindset, public relations, you're trying to influence external sources as well as your internal. So a lot of the times in more traditional PR roles, PR specialists would draft a letter introducing this new concept, saying why this would be great to put this information in a small story or a byline or a small blog in their news site that will introduce the white paper or this new product you've launched, and gives them an idea as a publisher what audience this might be great for, why their audience may benefit from it. And ultimately, if they like all that, then they'll put that article on their website that will include all the links to your back to your website, and that business will be basically promoting you through the content and through the messaging. So that audience would have been interested because they read the article. They would have found that to be relevant to them. They would have clicked the link. They would have gone to your website and continued to find that information useful because it was related to what they just read. So in that sense, it's a much more genuine one-to-one relationship between what we were just describing, where you've got technically something Google's looking for, demonstrating additional information about the audience in a positive light, and giving you that authority and relevancy as a result. Now, that's a large amount of work to do to write up a brief and send that out to all these media sources and news sources. So a lot of SEO specialists have moved into a hybrid role in that sense, where they're doing similar things, but instead of asking for a whole article or describing everything, they're just simply saying like, hey, I think my business is relevant to your audience. If you can squeeze a link in somewhere, please do so. Even then, just blanket doing that is going to get you very mixed, if not negative results, versus approaching it much more with that PR specialist mindset, where you're still trying to handpick the right audience, the right sources, the right messaging, and give them as much value to do so as possible, so that you're building that quality backlink. Often this is coupled with thought leadership strategies and content, which if we were going to talk into a whole SEO episode, that might be a good kind of bridging thing, but we're not going to do that today. That's a big onion to start peeling back.
Well, really what you're talking about is doing your research, being a lot more tactical. But there's another side to this. We're talking about getting backlinks to go to your website. What about your website providing backlinks to other websites, right? Because it does work both ways. So Jordan, you explained it so eloquently from that lens. Can you flip it the other way around? You are a oil and gas company that offers X, Y, and Z, and you've been approached by somebody who may or may not be relevant. Should you consider putting a backlink? Does that help your domain authority, or is it just helping the others?
Exactly. And this actually gets into a good, argument against those that are traditionally just selling backlinks. Unless they are those businesses and have a really firm understanding about the value that you might be providing back to them as a reason they should even entertain putting a link to your website, you really have to understand the goals and objectives of that originating source. So if I am the New York Times, do I want to link to you? If I am an oil and gas company with a lot of clout, do I want to link to a small, unproven service business in my neighborhood? Maybe they're going to be my next competitor. I don't necessarily want to do that. So these types of considerations are often pretty complex and not usually in the benefit of the other business. So for those that are just freely selling things, you got to wonder about the legitimacy of those links long term and how that might benefit that business, if at all.
That's right. So if we're talking about backlinks being lazy PR. The reality of it all is that we're not just talking about SEO and, growth with a search engine such as Google. We're now talking about reputation management and who you want to be associated with both ways. And so, if you are that dominant player, you have the responsibility sometimes, which is not, welcomed sometimes, but you do have that responsibility to make those decisions. Do you want to pull that smaller player up with you, right? Do they align with the same values that we do as an organization? If they do not, that might be something right there that nips the whole idea of having a backlink linked to other player. And then the same thing applies the other direction. We want that bigger player to bring and help us, or that organization or that chamber or whatever the case might be. Do we align with the website and what it stands for, and the brand, and how it's operated itself, such as in oil and gas, it's indigenous communities or health and safety or whatever. So it isn't always about values, but does it align in the way that you operate your organization?
Yeah, and I think as we get to the close out on this concept, this little rant that we've been on that started with a full email inbox, I think that there's maybe four different steps we can leave you with here that I think would help to guide most people in most businesses that are looking to use backlinks in an intelligent way to do what they're meant to do and help Google do its job, and you get the traffic you ultimately are looking for and the authority increases that are relevant to your business. So the first step that I would recommend is first being strategic and understanding what audience you actually want Google to have an influence on, right? So if you're going to be showing up in searches, which kind of searches and how does that relate to an individual's buying behavior that might relate to a purchase or somebody trying to reach out, or if it's an e-commerce business going through the checkout process. Knowing who your audience is the first step. If you don't know who that is, then everything else I'm about to talk about is relevant. If you have an audience, so you're looking for a particular type of business owner, or maybe you're trying to work with, maybe you're a not PR firm, maybe you're an HR firm and you're selling HR services. So you want to get in touch with other business owners doing certain searches, then you're going to make sure that you're going to be able to reach out to that group specifically. The second step, once you have your audience, is to understand where that audience is when you might be wanting to message them that's not your website. So you already have your own blog, your own website. You can publish your content all day and night. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get in front of other places that those same audiences might also be mingling, might also be interested in your content or your messaging or your ideas. So once you have an idea of what news sources, maybe there are other websites that have similar service listings, they can be directory sites, any number of different website formats that can be overlapping with your audience, preferably at a beneficial part in their buying behavior. Then the third step would be to make sure that you have something relevant to say that those sites would have any sort of positive reason to link to. So oftentimes a content strategy is a great way to do that.
Yes.
Building thought leadership content. Maybe you're launching a free learning series that would be relevant to that audience and complementary to your services. Maybe you're solving a big problem and giving some free advice. These types of pieces of information are things that those websites might actually want to link to and benefit them mutually along with your business by linking to you. And then lastly, you're going to want to make sure that you have the ability to communicate this to that group. So having an ability to craft a message that can be sent to those site managers, those business owners of those other sites you want to get those links built onto, that is clearly demonstrating that mutual benefit and building that relationship. There are legitimate backlinking businesses out there that specialize in building quality relationships in very niche markets. That is one strategy to go, because it does fit with what we were just talking about, making sure that you're being more aligned with the audience, more aligned with the objectives that you're trying to go and trying to build that genuine benefit for both sides. So if you can do all four of those steps, then I think you're a much preferred process to get backlinking as part of your search marketing and get that working for your website rankings, traffic, and authority ultimately with Google. So in the end, hopefully you don't get sucked into buying links that you're not sure who they're for or why they're there. Just because the domain score is high doesn't mean it's going to really benefit your business. Don't be lazy.
Correct. The Jordan Woolf School of Backlinking, everybody. I think the other part to kind of consider here too is that often we're not talking about PR. We're talking about SEO. Increasing your authority with Google, increasing the number of keywords, driving traffic. It's often tied to business or operational objectives. There is a risk associated as well. And that risk associated is no different in any strategy with digital marketing, which is if you're relying on one thing, you could be one algorithm shift away from losing everything that you've done. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well, because if you're, going for quantity, which for the record, quality is going to get you that win. But if you did go for quantity or quality and Google's algorithm makes a big shift, and it's not favoring backlinks, which it has been moving further and further away from for the last 10 years. Well, the reality is all that work you've been doing and all the money and time that you've been, investing could all be for naught. So be wise, be tactical, talk to your team. If you have a marketing agency or an SEO guy, or not to mention, hey, if you're watching this right now, or you're listening in your car as you drive, there's a resource out there that you can, be educated. We live in a day and an age where, although people may not have a lot of experiences, there is no excuse to not know or understand things because we have an internet full of knowledge.
Absolutely.
Well, Jordan, is there anything else we should talk about backlinks other than just stop emailing everybody 8,000 times?
I feel a lot calmer now that we've kind of just spilled all of our therapy onto the world.
Not me.
No, you're still raging.
They're still coming. They're still coming in.
Mm-hmm. Well, for now, at least, I'm a little calmer and cooler. But hopefully, this helps somebody else too, and avoid some pitfalls as well as sends you in the right direction.
Well, why don't we end it there? I mean, we kind of jumped into a 20-minute rant about something that I don't think a lot of people really put a lot of thought into, because it's kind of a back burner topic, but it is one that is important. So let's end it there. Couple quick things though. Number one, if this has helped you, if there's any feedback that you want to provide, a thought that we missed, whatever the case might be, shoot us an email. Send us a message on social media. We want to hear from you. It's pretty cool, actually. We get a lot of messages from individuals who have feedback, and it's, that's a good point. We are not experts to the point where we know everything, and we only have so much bandwidth that we can invest, and people's bandwidth that they can invest into this podcast each week that we issue it. So we don't want to spend, 5 hours talking about a topic. So shoot us a message. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can also check us out wherever you get your podcast, Amazon, Spotify, Google, we're everywhere, and vice versa. If you're listening to us, you get to see our beautiful faces on YouTube, or be horrified by our faces on YouTube, depending on what you think of us. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on social media. We always have new episodes coming out every 2 weeks. I think this is episode 21, 22? We're somewhere in there. So there's a lot of back content if this is your first episode. Check it out. That being said, Jordan, anything wise you want to leave our beautiful audience with? Put you on the spot. No? Okay. Jordan doesn't want to leave us with any wisdom. On that note, have yourself a great week. We appreciate you. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Cheers.